The forgotten arrival. The exploration vessel Aurora drifted through uncharted space like a leaf on an endless ocean. Commander Marcus Reed stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the observation window. His crew had been searching for 3 years, following energy patterns that didn't match anything in human databases. They were looking for answers to the oldest question humanity had ever asked. Are we alone? The answer came without warning. Sensors screamed as massive structures appeared on every screen. Space stations the size of moons floated in perfect geometric patterns. Ships moved between them in organized streams, thousands of vessels traveling along invisible highways. Marcus felt his heart skip. This was it. This was everything humanity had dreamed of finding. Lieutenant Sarah Chen worked her console with shaking hands. Commander, I'm detecting communication networks spanning hundreds of systems. There are millions of signals. Entire civilizations talking to each other. Marcus straightened his uniform. Open a channel. All frequencies. Let them know we're here. The message went out into the void. We are humans from the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. We wish to join the community of intelligent species. For 3 hours nothing happened. Then a response arrived, cold and automated. Unknown vessel, maintain current position. Processing team en route. The ship that arrived 12 hours later was elegant and efficient, shaped like a silver crescent. It matched velocity with the Aurora without visible effort. A voice came through the communication system, translated instantly into perfect English. Unregistered vessel, prepare for classification inspection. Do not resist. Do not deviate from position. Marcus exchanged glances with his second officer. This wasn't the warm welcome they had imagined. A boarding party materialized on the Aurora's deck using technology that made human transporters look like stone tools. The leader was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to look through rather than at things. He carried a device that projected floating screens of light. The official studied Marcus and his crew with the interest someone might show insects under glass. Species designation unknown. Bipedal mammalian. Technological level primitive. Origin world shows extreme environmental variance. He tapped his device. Classification. Category 9 unregistered primitives. Quarantine protocols enacted. Marcus stepped forward. We're not primitives. We've built cities, explored our solar system, developed faster than light communication. We've come here seeking peaceful contact. The official didn't look up from his device. Your achievements are noted and considered unremarkable. The Galactic Assembly has encountered 47,000 species. You rank below median in all categories. Your presence is acknowledged but not required. Sarah spoke up, her voice tight with frustration. Required for what? The official finally met her eyes. Required for anything. You may exist in designated space. You will not interfere with assembly business. You will be reviewed for potential advancement in approximately 800 cycles. Her hands clenched into fists. 800 years? The official transmitted coordinates to their navigation system. You are assigned settlement zone Theta 7. The outer fringe sector. 17 asteroid clusters with minimal resources. Suitable for primitive species development. He turned to leave then paused. A courtesy warning. Do not attempt to enter Assembly Core territories. Do not attempt to contact Assembly leadership. Do not expect assistance. Your species is responsible for its own survival or extinction. The boarding party vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. Marcus stood in the silence that followed, feeling something cold settle in his chest. They had crossed the galaxy seeking wonders. They had found a bureaucracy that saw them as paperwork. Sarah's voice was quiet. What do we do now? Marcus looked at the coordinates glowing on the screen. We go to our assigned zone. We build. And we remember exactly how they treated us. The journey to Theta 7 took 6 weeks. The crew of the Aurora expected a wasteland. What they found was something else entirely. The asteroid clusters were massive, each one the size of a small moon. Initial scans revealed something that made Dr. Amara Osei, their chief science officer, call Marcus to the lab immediately. She held up a sample that glowed with soft purple light. This material shouldn't exist. It's a metamaterial with properties that violate several laws of physics as we understand them. It can store energy at impossible densities. It can bend spacetime. It can interface directly with biological neural networks. Marcus studied the glowing fragment. How much of this is here? Amara pulled up geological scans. The entire asteroid field is threaded with it. Millions of tons. Maybe billions. This zone they gave us because it's worthless? It's the most valuable real estate we've ever discovered. Marcus felt a smile touch his lips. Then we keep it quiet. We mine it. We study it. We build things the galaxy has never seen. And when we're ready, we show them what primitives can do. The first human colony took root in the largest asteroid cluster. They called it Haven. Within 2 years, 3,000 people lived and worked in tunnels carved from ancient stone. They used the purple metamaterial, which they named Voidstone, to power everything. Generators that never needed refueling. Shields that could stop radiation and micrometeorites. Tools that worked better than anything from Earth. Dr. Osei led the biotechnology division. She discovered that Voidstone could enhance human biology without harmful side effects. Colonists who worked with it developed faster reflexes, sharper minds, and bodies that healed from injury in days instead of weeks. She pushed further, finding ways to adapt human genetics to survive in environments that would normally kill them. Radiation-soaked asteroids. Frozen vacuum. Toxic atmospheres. Humanity began to change, to grow beyond its original limitations. Marcus, now Governor Reed of the Haven colonies, oversaw the expansion. 20 years passed. The population reached 500,000 spread across 40 asteroid settlements. They built ships using Voidstone drives that moved faster than anything the assembly used. They developed weapons that could crack asteroids apart or defend against any threat. They created artificial intelligences that managed complex systems and made intuitive leaps human minds couldn't achieve alone. And the galaxy ignored them completely. No assembly ships visited. No officials checked on their progress. The systems they had been given were so remote, so unwanted, that nobody cared what happened there. It was exactly what humanity needed. Not everyone in the galaxy was blind. Scholar Tin Lee of the Assembly Research Institute spent her career studying emerging species. She had access to monitoring systems that tracked development across the frontier zones. What she saw in Theta 7 made her question her instruments. The humans were advancing impossibly fast. Technology that should take centuries to develop appeared in decades. Population growth that should be gradual exploded exponentially. She compiled reports. She presented data to the Assembly Science Council. She warned that something extraordinary was happening in the outer fringe. The council reviewed her findings for exactly 7 minutes before dismissing them. Primitive species often show rapid initial development before stagnating. This is well documented. Your concerns are noted but not considered urgent. Tin Lee left the chamber knowing she was right and knowing nobody would listen. While humanity built in secret, something else stirred in the darkness beyond known space. The Kryn Dominion had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 6,000 years through conquest and subjugation. They had crushed 100 civilizations and enslaved 1,000 worlds. Their Warmaster Crenshaw stood before a holographic map showing the Galactic Assembly territories glowing in soft blue light. She saw weakness. The Assembly had known peace for so long they had forgotten how to fight. Their defense fleets were ceremonial. Their warriors were politicians playing at military service. Their vast territories were protected by nothing but reputation and outdated treaties. Crenshaw smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing. Begin the campaign. Take everything. Leave nothing but ash and obedience. The first Dominion war fleets crossed into assembly space like knives through silk. Border worlds fell in days. Defense stations crumbled under weapons that hadn't been used in living memory. Refugees fled in panic, carrying stories of unstoppable enemies and burning worlds. The assembly scrambled to respond, pulling together military forces that hadn't fought a real war in 3 centuries. They were too slow, too soft, too unprepared. And in the outer fringe, in the forgotten zones where primitive species were left to survive or die on their own, humanity continued to grow. They now numbered 3 million across 80 settlements. They had technology the assembly had never imagined. They had unity forged in isolation and dismissal. They had become something new, something dangerous, something the galaxy had created by ignoring them. Governor Reed, now 70 years old but enhanced by Voidstone treatments that kept him vital and strong, stood in the command center of Haven Prime. Reports flooded in from human trading networks. The Dominion was coming. The assembly was falling. And soon, everyone would have to choose sides. His communication officer looked up. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Assembly High Command. It's marked Priority Alpha. They're requesting our immediate attention." Marcus felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. After 50 years of silence, suddenly they remembered humanity existed. "Play it." An assembly official appeared on screen, looking nothing like the dismissive bureaucrat who had first classified humanity as unimportant. This one looked desperate. "Attention Theta 7 settlements. By emergency decree, All frontier species must evacuate current territories within 30 standard cycles. Your zones are being designated for assembly refugee relocation. Transport to processing stations will be provided. Compliance is mandatory. The message ended. Marcus stood perfectly still. They wanted humanity to abandon everything they had built, everything they had earned, everything they had become. They wanted humans to move aside so more important species could take their homes. Sarah Chin, now Admiral Chin of the Human Defense Fleet, stood beside him. What are our orders, Governor? Marcus looked at the screens showing human colonies, human ships, human cities built from nothing in the darkness. He thought about the official who had called them primitives and told them they didn't matter. He thought about 50 years of being ignored while they struggled and grew and became something magnificent. His voice was quiet but absolutely certain. Send a reply. Tell them no. Tell them these worlds are ours. Tell them if they want us gone, they'll have to move us themselves. And prepare the fleet. The galaxy is about to learn that primitives can bite back. The awakening force. The Kryn Dominion war fleets moved through assembly space like a storm, consuming everything in their path. Warmaster Crenshaw stood on the bridge of her flagship Devastator, watching another world burn on the viewing screens. This was the 43rd planet to fall in 6 months. Each victory came easier than the last. The assembly forces fought with outdated tactics and equipment designed more for show than for war. Her tactical officer reported the latest results. The Velix defense station has surrendered. They lost 12 ships before requesting terms. Total Dominion casualties, 0. Crenshaw's expression didn't change. She had expected nothing less. The assembly had grown fat and comfortable during their long peace. They had forgotten the fundamental truth of the galaxy. Power belonged to those willing to take it and hold it through strength. She studied the strategic map showing the next targets. Her scouts had identified resource-rich systems deeper in assembly territory. Systems that would fuel the Dominion expansion for another 1,000 years. Begin advance toward the core sectors. Increase fleet speed. The assembly is collapsing faster than anticipated. We take everything before they can organize meaningful resistance. While the Dominion pressed forward, chaos spread through assembly territories. Refugees fled by the millions, overwhelming stations and colonies never designed for such masses. High Arbiter Velnoth, leader of the Assembly Emergency Council, faced a crisis his civilization hadn't experienced in recorded history. They were losing a war and they had nowhere to put their displaced populations. An aide presented options on a holographic display. We need space immediately. Processing stations are at 300% capacity. Colony worlds are refusing additional refugees. Velnoth studied the map, his eyes settling on the outer rim territories. The frontier zones. The primitive species settlements. They have resources and empty space. We requisition those areas. The aide hesitated. Some of those species have been there for decades. They've built established colonies. Velnoth's voice was cold. They exist in assembly space by our permission. That permission is now revoked for emergency purposes. Send evacuation orders to all Category 9 settlements. They have 30 cycles to relocate. Those territories will be repurposed for proper assembly citizens. Among the dozens of species receiving evacuation orders, humanity was the largest and most developed. The message reached Governor Reed in Haven Prime's command center. He read it 3 times, each reading making the anger in his chest burn hotter. Admiral Chin stood beside him along with Dr. Osei and the Colony Leadership Council. They had all built this civilization from nothing. They had all sacrificed for 50 years to create something worth protecting. Dr. Osei spoke first, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. They want us to leave our homes. The medical facilities, the research centers, everything we've built. Just abandon it so they can give it to people who ignored us for half a century. Council member James Torres added, we have 3 million people across 80 settlements. Where exactly do they expect us to go? Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Then he looked at the data screens showing human achievements. Voidstone technology that exceeded anything the Assembly possessed. Ships that could outmaneuver Dominion cruisers. Weapons systems that had never been tested in real combat but showed devastating potential in simulations. Enhanced colonists who were stronger, faster, and more resilient than baseline humans. They've given us an order. We're going to refuse it. The council chamber went silent. Admiral Chin leaned forward. You understand what that means? We'll be in direct defiance of Assembly authority. They could declare us hostile. Send enforcement fleets. Marcus nodded slowly. They could. But they won't. They're losing a war. They're desperate and scared. They need their military assets fighting the Dominion, not forcing refugees to move. We call their bluff. The human response went out 12 hours later. Governor Reed recorded it himself, standing in front of the Haven Prime Assembly Hall. His message was broadcast on all assembly frequencies. We have received your evacuation order. Our answer is no. We were sent to these territories 50 years ago and told to survive on our own. We did more than survive. We built homes, communities, and a future. These worlds are ours by right of settlement and development. We will not abandon them. If the Assembly wishes to remove us, they are welcome to try. But we will defend what is ours. The message sent shockwaves through Assembly leadership. High Arbiter Velnoth called an emergency session. A junior species is refusing direct orders. This is unprecedented. We must respond with force to maintain authority. Scholar Tinley, finally given a voice in the crisis, spoke up. With what force? Every military asset is committed to stopping the Dominion. And perhaps you should review the data I've been providing for 20 years. The humans are not what you think they are. She displayed reconnaissance footage that monitoring satellites had captured. Human ships moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible. Colony defenses that could repel asteroid strikes. Population centers that showed technological advancement far beyond Category 9 classification. Velnoth stared at the data in growing disbelief. How is this possible? They were primitives. Tinley's voice carried an edge of vindication mixed with fear. They were underestimated. Ignored. Given worthless territory that turned out to contain resources we didn't recognize as valuable. And they've been advancing in isolation for 50 years while we paid no attention. If we send ships to force their evacuation, we may lose those ships. And we cannot afford to lose anything right now. The Assembly chose to table the human situation for later resolution. They had bigger problems. The Dominion continued its relentless advance. But War Master Crenshaw had noticed the exchange. She reviewed the human response with interest. A species defying the Assembly. Technology that caught her tactical analyst's attention. She smiled. Perhaps these humans would provide more interesting sport than the soft Assembly forces. She diverted 3 scout fleets toward human territories. Not her main battle groups. Just enough ships to test this primitive species and see if they were worth conquering or merely destroying. The scouts entered the Theta 7 sector expecting easy prey. They found something very different. The Dominion ships approached Haven Prime broadcasting standard intimidation messages. Primitive species, you are now property of the Kryn Dominion. Surrender all vessels and facilities. Resistance will result in total annihilation. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the human flagship Defiance. Around her, 40 human warships held formation. They were outnumbered. The Dominion had sent 70 scout vessels. Her tactical officer reported enemy weapons charging. Admiral, they're preparing to fire. Chen's voice was calm. All ships execute pattern Delta. Show them what Voidstone drives can do. The human fleet scattered in a maneuver no Assembly ship could match. They accelerated at impossible rates, changing vectors instantly. The Dominion's first volley hit empty space. Then the humans attacked. Their weapons were different from anything the Dominion had encountered. Voidstone-enhanced particle beams that punched through shields like they weren't there. Missiles that could think and adapt their approach mid-flight. Mines that could teleport short distances to intercept enemy ordnance. The Dominion scouts suddenly found themselves in a battle instead of an execution. Captain Marcus Reed Jr., the governor's grandson commanding the destroyer Phoenix, led a strike wing against the Dominion flagship. His ship took heavy fire, but the enhanced hull plating held. He returned fire with precision that came from genetic enhancements and neural interface technology. Direct hit on their command bridge. Their coordination is breaking down. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 23 Dominion ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest retreated in disorder. Human losses: 5 ships heavily damaged, 0 destroyed. Admiral Chen watched the enemy flee and allowed herself a small smile. Send the battle footage to all Assembly networks. Make sure everyone sees it. Let the galaxy know the primitives have teeth. The footage spread like wildfire across Assembly communication systems. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly knew their name. The images showed human ships moving with impossible agility. Human crews fighting with coordination and skill that rivaled the legendary warrior races. A Category 9 species defeating Dominion forces that had crushed Assembly fleets. On Valkyrie Prime, the Assembly homeworld, High Arbiter Velnoth watched the battle footage for the 7th time. Scholar Tinley sat across from him, no longer ignored or dismissed. This changes everything. He spoke quietly. They're not primitives. They never were. We just refused to look. Tinley nodded. They've developed in isolation with resources we didn't value and motivations we didn't understand. They're angry at being dismissed. They're proud of what they've built. And now they've proven they can fight. Velnoth leaned back in his chair, looking suddenly very old. What do they want? That was the question. Governor Reed received communication requests from a dozen assembly officials within 24 hours of the battle. Each one more polite than the last. Each one carefully avoiding any mention of evacuation orders or primitive classifications. He ignored them all for 3 days, letting them wait. Letting them wonder. Letting them understand what it felt like to be dismissed. When he finally responded, he addressed High Arbiter Velnoth directly. You want to know what we want? We want recognition. We want respect. We want the same rights and representation given to every other species in the Assembly. We want an end to arbitrary classifications that treat sentient beings as lesser. And we want a voice in decisions that affect our future. Velnoth met with his council. Granting them full member status sets a dangerous precedent. Other frontier species will demand the same. Tinley cut through the political concerns. The alternative is making enemies of the only species currently winning battles against the Dominion. We need them. Whether you're ready to admit it or not, we need what they've become. The decision took 2 weeks of debate. In that time, the Dominion learned about their scout fleet's defeat. Warmaster Crenshaw studied the human tactical data with growing interest. She had underestimated them. She wouldn't make that mistake again. She diverted a full battle group toward human space. 30 capital ships. 300 support vessels. Enough firepower to crack planets. Governor Reed watched the approaching Dominion armada on long-range sensors. This was it. The real test. They had beaten scouts. Now they faced the full fury of an empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds. He called a meeting of all colony leaders. We can run. Take our ships and flee deeper into unknown space. Or we can stand and fight for what we've built. Dr. Osei spoke for the science division. We've spent 50 years becoming something new. Something stronger. If we run now, we prove the Assembly was right to dismiss us. We prove we're not ready for the galaxy. James Torres added, our people didn't come this far to surrender the moment things get hard. We fight. Admiral Chin began coordinating with every human settlement. They pulled together every combat-capable ship, every defense platform, every weapon system. They called on their network of allied species, the other forgotten peoples who humanity had traded with and helped over the decades. Species like the Zixthar insectoid traders who had been ignored for centuries answered the call. We stand with humans. They remembered us when powerful species forgot. We remember them now. The Battle of Meridian Station began when the Dominion Battle Group entered the Theta 7 sector. Warmaster Crenshaw expected to crush the human resistance in hours. Instead, she found a defensive network that had been carefully prepared. Human ships used the asteroid fields they knew intimately, striking from unexpected angles. Allied vessels provided support and coordination. Voidstone weapons tore through Dominion shields. The battle raged for 3 days. Space filled with debris from both sides. Human colonies took damage. Settlements lost power. But the line held. Captain Sarah Reed, leading a damaged destroyer with half her crew injured, broadcast to the human fleet. We hold this ground. Not for the Assembly. Not for recognition. For ourselves. For the future we built with our own hands. When the Dominion finally retreated, they had lost 90 ships including 2 capital vessels. Human and allied losses were severe. 20 settlements needed emergency repairs. 15,000 colonists were dead. But they had won. They had faced the empire that terrified the galaxy and turned it back. The footage of the Battle of Meridian Station reached every corner of Assembly space. High Arbiter Velnoth called Governor Reed personally. The Assembly Council has voted. Humanity is granted full member status with immediate effect. You will have representatives on the council. Your territories are recognized as sovereign. You have our apology for 50 years of dismissal. Marcus took a long breath. And the other forgotten species? The ones you've been ignoring for centuries? Velnoth paused. We will review all frontier classifications. Tinley has been appointed to lead that review. Real changes are coming. Marcus looked out at Haven Prime, at the cities his people had built in darkness and isolation. At the ships that had just proven humanity belonged among the stars. The galaxy had ignored them until they couldn't be ignored anymore. Now everyone watched and wondered what the primitives would do next. We accept your recognition. But understand this. We didn't fight for your approval. We fought because this is our home. We'll work with the Assembly. But we'll never forget who we had to become to earn basic respect. Across human space, 3 million people celebrated survival and recognition. They had wandered into a galaxy that dismissed them. They had been given worthless territory and told to survive alone. They had done more than survive. They had become a power that empires feared and civilizations respected. The galaxy had ignored humanity's arrival. That mistake would never be repeated.